All right. Well, let's start off this morning with some gratitudes. Who's got some gratitudes they would like to share with us? Could be real estate related or not.
Well, I'll say one, Neil. I'm grateful. I had a property that was virtually dead in the water, had sent the earnest money released, and anyway, God changed it, and now we're back on and closing on the 25th. So that's a praise and a gratitude.
Anytime you can get those back on track, if they seem like they're off track,
I know. That's always a blessing.
All right. Well, I'm grateful for all of y'all tuning in this morning, and for those of you who have reached out and told me that they enjoyed the class so far. So I'm thankful for that. Anybody else? How about I could just call on a few people. And how about it, Tim Forrester? You got some gratitudes this morning? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Awesome.
I'm trying to get my video on. I'm just grateful for where I'm at today, right now, as in the day, and thankful for all the blessings that are bestowed upon me, and just where I'm at, I'm thankful.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's do one more. How about somebody from Arkansas? Chris and Cooley, can you unmute? How about some gratitudes from you today?
Is this gonna bother you?
I'm just kind of calling on people at random, so they may or
Sorry,
may not
I was
be
coming
able
down
to
the hall.
unmute. There she is.
Sorry, I was coming down the hall. A gratitude?
Yeah.
I'll do a gratitude. This is our state convention this week, so I'm thankful for the organization that we have that's still trying to put something together for us to keep us connected.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the fall conventions come out this year. On the upside, I guess you can attend the bits and pieces that you want.
That's what we're
without
doing.
all the travel. So
yeah, well, we're having a big group in the office to bringing in some food and snacks and letting everybody just hang out here and do
Awesome.
it together.
All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll move along and get started on our review from last week. So these are the few things that we went over last week, and just wanted to have some people chime in on a few of these. Anybody using any rituals to get you in that high positive emotional state? Again, that's the one that you want to be in when you're face to face with a client, whether that's on a listing consultation or working with a buyer. It's hard to stay in that high positive all the time, but you need, maybe some things to get you there. How about anybody using anything in particular to help them on that? Could be something as simple as music, could be some affirmations.
I'll go, Neil. I'm Marjorie.
Okay.
Okay, I start off with my gratitudes every morning, and I read my Bible. I mean, I do that before I even look at my phone, because you get caught up in all the email messages and text messages, and that'll take up 2 or 3 hours every day. So I just start off with coffee and just a word from God and being thankful for what I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Marjorie. And who remembers what that old sciencey item, that reticular activating system? Does anybody remember what that is that we talked about last week, and maybe why it's important? Something that probably all of you use every week. Either you might not know it, but it probably kicks in at some point. All right. How about it, John Criswell? I see you on here.
Hi, Neil. My name is Michelle. I'm from the Nashville market. I'm from the Hermitage office. And I know that RAS, we call it, is your Google search engine, and that what you focus on multiple.
Yeah, so that's the thing that might allow you to pick up on a real estate conversation from across the room. So, Awesome. Thank you. And then
What'd you-
lastly, one
What'd
of
you
the
ask
things
me,
there.
Neil?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Sorry.
What did you ask me?
I was asking you about that reticular activating system and how you might use it or when it kicks in for you. That's that thing that, allows you to zero in on those real estate conversations across the room. Or when you're at Kroger or I don't know, wherever you might be.
I just drink me once I get that extra cup of caffeine in me, that's when it kicks in.
Got it.
Starts about 5:30 in the morning. It goes to about 3 in the afternoon. Then I'm off. Then I start to shut down.
All right. And last thing I wanted to mention on this slide was just that your non-conscious can't take a joke. So that's what we can use to help program us to the positive. All right. And we also discussed last week this ninja morning ritual. And I know we have already heard some people talk about starting off with gratitude, some positive reading, affirmations, visualizations, and 2 personal notes. I've already got one of my notes done this morning, so it's ready to hit the mail. And then next we've got what you focus on expands. And that's this is the John Goddard that we talked about last week with his life list. He was kind of the original Indiana Jones type of a guy, but focus on the things that you want, not what you don't want, because what you focus on expands. That's what we talked about last week being a major theme of the book. How many of you been around in sales long enough to ever hear or read any of Charlie Tremendous Jones' material? Anybody? Might just have to unmute yourself. But he's written 9 books, some 2 million copies, 12 languages. But I thought this quote is pretty interesting. I'll read part of it to you here. Don't read to be big, read to be down to earth. Don't read to be smart, read to be wise. Don't read to memorize, read to realize. Don't read to just learn, read to sometimes unlearn. So hopefully you might have a chance to go out and take a look at some of Charlie Tremendous Jones, and that tremendous is in there because apparently he used that word so often that kind of stuck as his moniker. But this first chapter we're talking about today really talks about creating your future, and many of you have heard the saying, you're going to be the same 5 years from now, except for the people that you meet, places that you go, and the books that you read. I would also add to that probably the media that you consume these days. So it's not just books that you read. All right. Having a little issue with my PowerPoint moving along here this morning. Next, we're going to talk about anybody using visualization a lot in what they're doing. I know a lot of athletes, you hear about this, people visualizing their success before it happens, whether that might be in a particular sport. But there's also very successful people that do this. So they work on visualizing their achievements before they actually happen. Anyone out there using that on a daily or weekly basis?
I'm going to create a vision board.
Yeah, vision board. That's definitely a good way to keep it in front of you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with what a vision board is, we're gonna get into it a little bit later. But it's basically it's things that you want to achieve or goals that you have, and you have some type of visual representation of them that you put on a little small board, or it could be a big board that you just keep it in front of you.
Board. Mm-hmm.
Poster board.
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
I have one hanging in my office, Neil.
Awesome.
My first boss made us do them each
I went
year.
to one of the old Floyd Wigman courses one time where they actually made you, you kind of had one of those, and it was an 8.5 by 11 piece that you had to have laminated and stuck to your keychain, which is a little challenging, but it definitely kept it in front of you all the time. So,
I did that same class, Neil, with Floyd Whitman.
yeah.
And I did a visualization board, excuse me, up to about 2 years ago. And I've gotten real lax about that. And that's the reason why I'm back in here again. I think it's kind of like a diet. You know, you go on a diet, then you gain weight, and then you have to come back. But I'm gonna do that as well.
That does happen to some of us.
Neil,
Yes.
I read a book years ago, and it was really geared toward athletes about visualizing. You know, you throw a ball, you visualize where you want it to go rather than where you're, you know, what you're doing at that moment. And I've tried doing that with my business. I go to a listing appointment, and on the way there, I visualize putting the sign in the yard and the sellers signing the paperwork. And I try to use that in all aspects of my life, not just my work.
I like that. Visualizing the sign going up, and then it kind of changes from for sale to sold, and then you're at the closing. I like
Yeah.
that. Thanks, Pat. So when we get into the affirmation side of this, you know, this is basically self-talk, but you know, do it in a way that you're saying it as you're already doing it, or you already have it. So you can see some of the examples in the little warrior mindset image that I've got there. You know, I make good choices, or I'm a kind person, or I believe in myself and my goals. But you're saying that as if you're already experiencing it. And then our next chapter gets into these 8 steps of proper programming. And we're going to start off with the first 4, but you're going to use your goals, not somebody else's goals. So not somebody else in your family's goals, or somebody else in your real estate business, but your own goals. Sorry, my phone is ringing here. And you're going to keep it positive and measurable. So not something arbitrary, not that you're going to do well in real estate, but maybe that you're going to, you know, list a certain number of houses or help a certain number of families, those type things. And you're going to keep them in the first person and present tense. And then next, you're gonna look at it through your own eyes, not as if you were looking at yourself, you know, from afar. And sensory specific is a little bit of a challenging one, but you know, it could be maybe if you're getting into the visualization and affirmations, maybe it's a certain sound of something. Maybe it's the sound of you know, if your goal is to go on a big beach trip, maybe it's the sound of the ocean. Maybe it's the sound of the closing happening and you know, you're hearing it, whatever it might be for you.
Hey, Neil.
Yeah.
Along with sound, sometimes we've all had a song that we love that inspires us. Or whenever you hear that song, it reminds you of when you met your spouse, or when you reach that goal, or it's a certain song that brings you into the present of your goal. And I think sometimes you should pick a song.
I like that.
And
Maybe you have a closing song.
Inspire you.
I like that.
Yeah, or you have a song of before you go into that listing.
Yeah.
I have a song that I used to like to play 15 years ago in my first year. At every open house, I played Unforgettable on the CD player. So when somebody would come into the house, they'd hear Nat King Cole and his daughter, Natalie, sing Unforgettable. And it'd be all subliminal, that they would never forget my homes.
I like it. So, and the nice thing is with music on our phones, you can have it with you pretty much all the time. And the last one on
15
here.
years ago, the CDs were pretty big.
Yeah, you had to take the CDs with you, and maybe if you're like me, you actually took one of those little mini boom boxes to
yeah, that's what it was,
to carry them
Neil.
with you. We're dating ourselves now.
But yes, now the iPhone is great. Right.
Yeah, now you can just take your phone and a little speaker. You
Yeah.
know, next, last thing there is Anchor. That might be something, maybe it's something tangible. You know, like this is just a little something I keep on my desk, and it's a piece of driftwood that I think kind of looks like a crocodile or alligator that I picked up on a beach from a vacation. So I don't know, it just sits on my desk, and it's like, you know, hey, keep working. You go on that next vacation, reach that next goal. But anybody else have anything that's maybe something sitting in their office or either at home that they use to look at? Song that you might?
Well, I have a picture of my grandchildren, so I want to be able to do things with them. Lots of monetarily things with grandchildren, and so I look at that every day.
You got different ways you can spoil them, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, next when we look at the power of affirmations, you know, Larry Kendall just talks about using this 7 minutes a day. So it's not a lot of time, but again, positive, specific, present tense. So it might be something like, this is one I'm working on right now. I enjoy weighing. I'm trying to get it down to 200 pounds because of COVID. I picked up some extra pounds. I know nobody else had that happen to, but that's one that I'm working on right now. Or maybe it's something like, I'm grateful that I list more than a certain number of houses each year. Could be something expressed like that. So we're gonna do 2 breakout groups today. The first one, I want you to focus on these 2 things. So I want you to write this down because a couple of times I've visited the breakout rooms, and I noticed that the first question is, what are we supposed to be doing? So if you can just discuss in your breakout groups one positive, either person, place, or book for each person, and then a goal for each person, or maybe it's an affirmation for each person in your group, and just discuss those. We're going to probably do about 5 minutes or so here. So we'll go into these breakout rooms. All right.
Neil, you cut us off.
Yeah, I know. I probably need to make these a little bit longer. But let's just take a couple minutes to, if somebody has something that probably better that you share your own goal or affirmation as opposed to somebody else's. But anybody come up with something in there that they wanted to mention to the group, or something maybe you found inspirational?
Well, obviously associating with those people that have a very positive attitude and that you know are some of the top producers is a key. And then when you walk around someone that's down in a dump and having a bad day, then maybe you ought to keep walking.
Right. I use this little thing called I do this little kind of like a little symbol like that. And so usually somebody will ask me what that is. I said, you got to build a bridge and get over it. If they're telling you like the same thing over and over, I just do that little build a bridge, get over it, move on. One of the books I wanted to share with you that I have found over the years is one of my probably #1 book that I recommend, a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. So it's a pretty awesome book, and he actually shares best ideas from a lot of other books and authors that he's friends with. So it's one that I find particularly helpful.
the name of it again?
Repeat the author too.
The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. It's a guy that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's one of those short books that sold a lot of copies. But that's a great book. All right, who else? Anybody else got anything they want to share?
One book that was brought up in ours, Neil, was Go Giver.
Yep, we're going to talk about that one in just a second. So,
Good deal.
actually, in part of today's reading. So, all right, anybody else?
I had something I wanted to say. A lot of times I'm so busy and we don't have a lot of time, so I sort of double duty with while I'm showering or driving, listening to podcasts that I find inspirational. And one of them I really like is the Brian Buffini Show.
Yep, he's got he's good to look. There's a lot of good podcasts if you're into podcasts. I was actually reading or listening to the Ninja Selling podcast on the way in this morning. So
I listen to that one a lot too.
Another resource for you if you want.
It's a great one.
Michelle, who is that again? Can you spell that name? Brian?
Brian Buffini, Buffini.
Yeah, I think he came to speak at one of our events we had in Memphis years ago.
He's Irish, so you
Sounds
might recognize his
familiar.
accent.
He lied. So this the next chapter, and frankly, this idea, it took me a while to catch on to this. I had to read it several times to kind of get the gist of it. But he talks about the power of focus, and he uses kind of this airplane analogy of, I'm going to try to mute some people here. If you don't mind muting yourself, unless you're talking. And again, a little trick you can use for Zoom, you can use the space bar to unmute yourself when you want to talk, and then you can just let go of it and you'll be muted again. All right, so he uses this airplane analogy to talk about the power of focus, and it really has to do with creating lift and adding thrust. And it's really kind of a conversation of having your I can talk beat out your I can't talk. So in other words, you need more can than can't. Just like in an airplane, you want plenty more, much more lift than you want it to have gravity, I guess, unless you're landing. I was trying to come up with an idea to visualize thrust, and this was the best one that I came up with. Anybody know what type of plane that is? Oh, it's showing you there. It's an F-15. Now you'll hear some British people talking in this, but what I want you to focus on is how quick this plane gets off the ground and how much you can actually see the thrust.
Sorry, George was here.
Is he going to turn? He's turning on now. This should be quite good, this. Right.
Notice from the time he
Look
starts
where
how
that
long it
red
takes him to
and
get off the
red and
ground.
white striped box is up in front of you, and it's kind of behind that at the moment.
I'll tell you when he's coming. You honestly won't need. But you're going to see.
Will it come around?
Oh, good God, yeah. Hopefully he'll keep it nice and low.
Here we go, he's coming.
He's coming. Okay, you're going to stand up.
I don't know
I'll tell you when he's up. Okay, stand up, please.
He's up already.
Is it up?
Yeah.
Staying low, Christ.
Oh, he's got afterburners on.
Keep it there. This will be really good. Can you see it now,
Oh,
Ella?
wow.
Okay, look.
Oh, look how low he is.
He's going to pull straight. He's going to go straight up.
Oh my God.
Hold on.
And disappeared into cloud. Wow.
So these are the pages in the book that talk about this net forward energy ratio, which again, I found a little confusing until I think I read through it, I don't know how many different times, but it really is your I can divided by your I can't. And so you can see in his examples, this first one where somebody was 80% I can and 20% I can't, that their ratio is 4. When you drop the I can't down to 10%, it more than doubles to 9. Now, if you look over here on this other page, if you can, and I'm not saying this is easy to do because it's hard to do, but if you can drop your I can't down to 0, that basically you have infinite possibilities or infinite results. Okay. What's interesting, Larry talks about some of these real estate companies that he knows that people have started. They've actually used the infinity sign as their company logo. So some people have really bought into this. So I know it's a little bit challenging to understand, but if you can really focus on getting rid of your I can't thoughts, then it can really help you. Anybody have any specific examples of this that they might want to share? All right, we're going to move on. So the second principle, again, the first principle, those were the chapters that we covered so far, really talk about personal mastery. This second principle is stop selling and start solving. So how do we do that? Anybody got a basic overall thought on how you do that? Brenda Hampton, how about it? How do you stop selling and start solving? I think you're unmuted. Any thoughts?
Neil, I find that if the more that I listen to a client, if you just hush and listen, they'll tell you exactly what their needs are. Then you can
go ahead.
I'm sorry. And then you can figure out what their needs are and put together some things that are going to help them. We have all the resources in the world as realtors, and we can help them in a number of ways if we just, listen to what their needs are, basically.
Yeah, you hit my first point right square on the head, and that's ask questions. And actually, the book discusses it as using the Socratic method, asking questions to lead people to decisions instead of talking all the time, which, some of us have to work on that more than others. But if we can just ask questions and actively listen, sometimes I think it will help you if you make sure you pull out your pen and paper and write the answers down, because that not only will it help you focus on listening, but it will show the people that you're talking with that you are listening because you're writing the answers down. And hopefully if you're writing them down, then you'll at least be able to refer back to it. Secondly, I would say, have or use a process. And we talked about in one of the breakout groups I popped in on, she was talking about being consistent, and I said, one of the things, hey, look, if you're looking at being consistent, have some things that you're measuring yourself against on each of those clients. And that kind of comes down to having or using a process. Now, we're going to talk a little bit later in the book about some buyer and seller processes, but have some of those things, have some checklists, use a process. It'll help make you more consistent, and it'll get you more into the mode of solving instead of selling. The next idea here is that we control the process and they control the decision. I think this one idea here can take a tremendous amount of stress out of the real estate stressful world sometimes, if you can really buy into and talk to people in your office about this, specifically the ones that might get worked up about specific things. I can think about in today's world, it seems like, does anybody think that that whole repair process can be stressful? Because the interesting dynamic is in most of our markets, we have such a shortage of inventory that sellers are thinking, well, if I can sell my house in a day or hours, then I'm not going to do any repairs. And buyers, on the other hand, have paid maybe above list price, and they want all the repairs done. So you have this thing there that's very unequal, and it can make repairs stressful. But if you could apply this idea that you control the process and they control the decision, then it can take some of that stress off of you, because you'll realize that you don't control the decision, and ultimately we don't. The clients control it. But the more you can apply that and think about it, it will pull some of the stress out of real estate, and whether that's looking at offers or repairs or a variety of other things. Anybody have using this, or maybe have an example of how that could apply to their business right now? Anybody fighting any of those stressful situations on a Monday morning?
I do this when I'm working with repairs, especially, and it did take a lot of the stress off of me once I finally figured that out, that it doesn't matter what I think or what I think they should do. And I always tell sellers, I do work with more sellers than buyers, so I'm getting the list of repairs a lot. So I just tell the sellers that just because someone puts something on a list doesn't mean we have to address it, but it also means that the buyer could choose to walk away from it, the sale, if they want to. So I tell them usually it's good to choose a few. And again, I just try to put it out of my mind. If they want to sell their house, then they're going to maybe make the right decision. If they don't, it's not up to me.
It's a great point. I heard something in I honestly don't remember exactly what class it was in, but it was in a continuing ed class, and they were talking about building confidence in working with clients, and that one of the ways to build confidence is to, at some point, make it your decision to choose not to work with a client. And I know in today's world, the idea of turning down a listing might sound a little crazy. So it might have to be the one that you really don't want, or the person you really don't want to work with. But it can create an insane amount of confidence down the road. And it could be that maybe if you did that client might turn their thinking around and come back to you. So thanks for those words of wisdom there, Tammy. I appreciate that.
Neil, I actually had that happen. I came from a different industry. My husband and I owned a lawn and garden dealership. So it wasn't the happiest place, just because it was service oriented on things that break, and nobody likes to mow, and they certainly don't like their stuff working.
I like that. Nobody likes to mow.
Rarely.
Yeah,
rarely.
I get it.
But there were two times that I had to make a decision to do that. And the first time it wasn't hard at all. It was an immediate leave. The second one was a little bit more difficult because I'd worked with this person before. And when I said, you know what, I'm going to give you your deposit back, come and get your stuff, and I think you need to find somebody else to be your service provider. And he came down and said, here's a larger deposit, I want everything done. So, but that is true. The empowering process is true no matter what industry you're in. And as we're listening to all this and some of the things you said, I keep thinking, it's funny how we're always, because we do sell, but we are not salespeople. And I would say as realtors, we are still service providers. And I think when we remember that, along with our sales techniques and our plans and our goals, that the process does become more clear, and you see better ways to help your clients, because you're not trying to sell them. You're providing a service that's helping them, and every one of us do that. We help our clients and our people.
That's great points there. And I think sometimes you might pick up some clients just by the fact that you can show them that you show them and you demonstrate to them that you do have a process, because whoever else they might talk to might not appear to have any type of a process. So, keep this in mind. And when you have somebody in your office that's stressed out over something, just let them know that, hey, we control the process. They control the decision. And if you buy into that enough, it can really help pull some of that stress off of you.
Neil, I think an area that comes into play too is in listing the house in the price. Because you can show comps and you can give advice, but they have to decide what they're going to list it for. And then you have to decide whether you're willing to take it at that price or not. Yep.
That's going to be a topic that we talk about down the road called that the Ninja Selling calls your walkaway price. So, if they want to go too high, then, hey, most of us would take a listing that was a little high today's market, right? I would. But at some point, it might become too high, and that might be your walkaway price. If it was beyond a certain number, then, but yeah, that's a good thing, because, hey, you can give them the information, and again, here, they control the decision. So whether they price it at 342 or 347 or 350, may not be that big of a deal. So just realize, hey, it's their decision, and you can give your advice. They don't always have to take it, right? All right, we're gonna move on to the next chapter, and this begins talking about this pursuer distancer dance, and it has to do with attracting instead of pursuing. So many of you could relate to this from everything from sales to dating to a lot of different things in life, that if you can work on attracting people, that it is much better than pursuing them. Because if you pursue people too much, you're probably going to drive them away. And we can probably all look to some type of retail experience that you've had where, if somebody pursues you too much, you probably worry that something is wrong, maybe that they're too desperate, whatever the case might be. But it is a fact that if you pursue too much, you're probably just going to drive people away. And one of the ways that we can attract is by creating value. So if you see some things in there in that thumbs up, it's things that I think can create value. So I think ideas like quality, satisfaction, choice, solutions, quality service. Those are all things that I think can help create value. And here's where I was talking about. We were discussing the Go Giver book. I would highly encourage you to get a copy of that, read that. It's if you're a fast reader, you can probably read it in 3 or 4 hours, or maybe 2 hours. I'm not a very fast reader, and I like to take notes. So you can see all my notes in the back of this book. But the Go Giver book is highly encouraged by Larry Kendall and Ninja Selling. And if you've gone to one of the installations, which I would encourage you to do, they may have given you a copy of the book. So that's where I received a couple. But in the Go Giver, he talks about this law of value being tying your worth to how much more you give in value than you take in payment. So, many of you can probably think of a product or a service where you thought they gave a tremendous amount of value compared to what you paid for that item or that service. And I think most of us are much more likely to refer and talk about in a positive way, maybe share on social media, whatever it might be, about a product or service where you feel like you got a lot more value. How that can relate to us is hopefully our customers are going to talk about us to try to go out of their way to refer us to their friends and their family. if they're going to feel like they got more in value. So what do you think? What do people value specifically when it comes to real estate?
Honesty.
Honesty.
Knowledge about the industry and about the market and about whether to stage.
Okay. What else?
Also keeping in touch and donating time to the listing or to the seller to let them know what you're doing. Market their house.
Yeah, to show them, to keep in touch with them, say, make sure that they know what you're doing. Yeah, I get that.
Results. I think they want to know that we really care.
Okay.
And being sympathetic with them, because they say that selling a house is the second most stressful thing other than losing a spouse. So we get kind of callous, I think, sometimes about that, but being sensitive to them.
I think they want results.
Yes.
They usually want to sell their house within a specific time frame.
Yeah, so no matter how nice you are or how much you listen, if you're not producing the results they want, they're going to move on to someone else.
Good point. All right. Any other thoughts on what people value in real estate?
Yeah, I believe they value honesty. I think there are times when there must be a reality check at some point, but you are for them and you are their supporter and their go-to person for knowledge, but you have to be honest with people. You can't lie. You can't deceive. You be upfront and you be truthful and you'll keep your clients.
Yeah. Well, I think you could simply ask them, what is it? And in one of the things, the pre-listing interview that we're gonna cover down the road talks about, what are three things you're looking for in a realtor. So simply asking people what they value is one way to get an answer, and it might be able to get that specific client's answer, which we won't assume that it's one of the things that we just mentioned, but ask them. But in general, Ninja Selling talks about value being these two items. It's something that either solves their problem or makes them feel good. So it's you're easing pain or bringing them pleasure. So whether that's a simplified process, whether that's selling it quickly, whether that's getting them the most money, for different people, it's going to be different things. So don't always just assume that it's, one thing or the other. We've all seen situations probably in the last couple of years where, people have come up with really, different things that, as opposed to some time back that, you wouldn't have thought it was that important. But one thing you should be doing here when people, when you think about talking about what people value, when you're writing an offer for somebody today, you should be asking the question of the other agent, what does the seller value the most? What's going to be the most important thing to them as they're evaluating offers? And if you're not doing that, I would highly suggest you start doing that. Okay, we're gonna hit our second breakout group here for a few minutes. And again, I heard this again in the first breakout group. So I want you to take out a pen and write this down. So I want you to write down what's one way that you can attract people or clients to you, and one way that you can create value. So one way to attract, one way to create value. We're going to do some breakout groups for about 5 minutes here. All right. Well, I know we're about at our time for today. I've got one last thing that I wanted to cover, and that's this is mentioned in I believe it's chapter 12, and this is by Stuart Emery, and it's about mastery. And the group, which is the real estate company that Larry Kendall is part of, they read this at a lot of their business meetings. And so I'm going to read the first paragraph. I'm going to ask for a couple of volunteers on the second, third, and fourth paragraphs, but we're going to cover this. So, and this is mastery. Mastery in one's career and consciousness growth simply requires that we consistently produce results beyond and out of the ordinary. Mastery is a product of consistently going beyond our limits. For most people, it starts with technical excellence in a chosen field and a commitment to that excellence. If you're willing to commit yourself to excellence, to surround yourself with things that represent this and miracles, your life will change. When we speak of miracles, we speak of events or experiences in the world which are beyond the ordinary. How about a volunteer for the next three?
I'll do one.
All right.
This is Mary Sharp. It's remarkable how much mediocrity we live with, surrounding ourselves with daily reminders that the average is acceptable. Our world suffers from terminal normality. Take a moment to assess all the things around you that promote your being average. These are the things that keep you powerless to go beyond a limit you arbitrarily set for yourself. The first step to mastery is the removal of everything in your environment that represents mediocrity, removing those things that are limited. One way is to surround yourself with friends who ask more of you than you do. Didn't some of your best teachers, coaches, parents, etc.?
Thank you, Mary W. Sharp. I could listen to you read all day. That was awesome. All right, somebody chime in here for us.
I'll read. This is Sandy Atnip.
All right.
Another path to mastery is removal of resentment toward masters. Develop compassion for yourself so that you can be in the presence of masters and grow from the experience. Rather than comparing yourself and resenting people who have mastery, remain open and receptive. Let the experience be the planting of a seed within you that with nourishment will grow into your own individual mastery.
Thank you, Sandy. All right, one last paragraph here, and then we're going to wrap up.
I'll read a shot. This is Lynn. You see, we are all ordinary, but a master, rather than condemning himself for these ordinariness, will embrace it and use it as a foundation for building the extraordinary. Rather than using it as an excuse for inactivity, he will use it as a vehicle for correcting, which is essential in the process of attaining mastery. You must be able to correct yourself without invalidating or condemning yourself, to accept results and improve upon them. Correct, not protect. Correction is essential to power and majesty.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And again, I hope you can join us next week. September the 21st, we'll be covering the next 20 pages, so 62 to 82. And then if you are not receiving the email from me regarding the handouts and the link, just drop me an email or drop your email in chat, and I will add you to my email list.